Good evening. Tonight we are going to talk about absolute values. So, if we took a look here, if we were to ask ourselves how many units away from 0 is negative 10 versus how many units away from 0 is positive 10, we know that this is a distance of 10 units, just like this is a distance of 10 units. So remember that the absolute value is the same thing as the distance from 0, which, as you know, cannot be negative because we cannot have negative distance. So remember this slide when we're talking about 15 versus a negative 15. They are the exact same distance. So, if we took a look at this problem, the absolute value of a minus 80 means that the absolute value is equal to either 5 units in this direction or 5 units in that direction. Because when we're talking about a distance, which is what the absolute value is really telling us, we're talking about either a positive or negative integer that represents the distance from 0. Therefore, the way we would actually write this would be a minus 80 equals 5, and a minus 80 is equal to negative 5, because the distance could either be a negative 5 or a positive 5, depending on what a is. So if I added 80 here, if a was 85, yes, that would work. It would indeed be an absolute value of 5. And if I went over here and added 80 to negative 5, I would have a equals 75, which if I were to plug in a equals 75, I'd have a negative 5, which it would end up being an absolute value of 5, which is why this is represented by two separate equations. In other words, if you have an absolute value of x equal to a, then x could either be a or x could be negative a. For example, if x was negative 7, then x could either be 7 or x could be negative 7 and would still allow the absolute value of x to be 7. So take a look at this next two examples, and we'll see that if y plus 2 is equal to 4, the way we're going to write that out is either that y plus 2 is equal to 4, or y plus 2 could also be equal to negative 4 because of the absolute value. In other words, this inside could either be 4 or negative 4. So if y was equal to 4, y plus 2 is equal to 4, then y would be equal to 2. And if y plus 2 is equal to negative 4, then y would be equal to negative 6. Therefore, when I have to graph my solution set, that means I have a point on 2 and a point on negative 6, because either of those solutions will make this true, because if y was equal to 2, then 2 plus 2 would be 4, and if y was equal to negative 6, then the inside here would be negative 4, and the absolute value of negative 4 is 4. So go ahead and try this example, keeping that in mind. So if I were to look here, I have two possibilities for open sentences. I know that here, this is telling me that x is greater than 3, greater than or equal to 3, and that it is also less than or equal to 9, because I have a filled-in circle at 9 and at 3, and it has to be in between these 2 points in order to allow this picture to be true. Whereas here I'll have x is less than or equal to 1, or, and I know it's an or because of this empty space here, x is greater than or equal to 5. So give this one a try on your own. And try this one as well. The secret code word is banana. And take a look at this problem here. I'm going to go ahead and take a look and see that I have this portion is in absolute values, which means that that portion has to be either a positive or a negative answer. However, we also have this plus 5 here. So before I do anything with that, I'm going to go ahead and subtract 5 on both sides to get rid of it on this side. Meaning I'll have 3 minus 6b equals 51. In other words, 3 minus 6b could be 51, or 3 minus 6b is equal to negative 51. If it was equal to positive 51, that would mean negative 6b is equal to 48, which would mean that b would be negative 8. And if it was over here, I would have negative 6b equals negative 54, which would just mean that b equals 9. So my two possible solutions are b equals negative 8 and b equals 9. So go ahead and take a look at this one. Very similar. You want to isolate this portion before you do anything else. So go ahead and give that one a try on your own. So to graph, if we had f of x equal to the absolute value of x, like this, that would mean for my 5 favorite points, negative 2, negative 1, 0, 1, and 2, if I had the absolute value of negative 2, then f of x would be 2, because f of x is just the same as y. And for a negative 1 would be 1, 0, 1, and 2. What ends up happening when you graph that is you'll have 0, 0, 1, 1, 2, 2, and negative 1, 1, negative 2, 2. So you'll end up with a triangle type shape. So go ahead and give this last problem a try, keeping in mind that your final answer should look like either an upward facing triangle or partial triangle or a downward facing partial triangle. And when you have an equation like this, feel free to go ahead and set up an XY chart. If you do not get a shape that looks like either here or here, you have most likely done something wrong. So keeping that in mind, go ahead and complete this example, and that is the end of this section. Please have a nice night, and I hope this all made sense.